I've been watching so many of these movies from the 1930s, I'm starting to lose track of contemporary life.
In other words, disassociation.
Yes. Thank you. Murder is the third talking picture from Alfred Hitchcock. For some reason, I never think of him as someone who was making movies this early. The 39 Steps was the earliest Hitchcock film I had ever seen up until now. That came out in 1935, and it is always just in my head as one of his earliest films, but he'd been making movies since 1922. The fact that he was still making films, and films like Frenzy, which I've seen, and as far as I can tell, is pretty well regarded, 50 years later is wild. Have there been other directors who have done that? Kubrick, Spielberg, Ford? Let me know in the comments. Now, fair warning, spoilers for Murder. Murder! Appropriately, the film begins with a murder. The murder of Edna Druce, to be exact. She's an actress from a third-rate theater troupe, and the suspected killer, Diana Baring, played by Nora Baring. Why did they give her the same last name? That is exceptionally confusing. Diana's found in a daze next to the dead body and the murder weapon. Case closed, am I right? Not so fast, cause enter Sir John Menier, actor extraordinaire, and something smells fishy to him. He doesn't buy it. In his mind, there's no way Diana could have committed this murder. And let me just say, there has never been anything more believable in a film than an actor who thinks they're so good at acting, they think they can solve crimes.
And my time on the stage would be shortened had I not for years trained myself to, how shall I put it, to apply the technique of life to the problems of my art. But today, ladies and gentlemen, that process is reversed. I find myself applying the technique of my art to a problem of real life. And my art is not satisfied.
Of course, Sir John, you've learned so much from acting that we will now let you work homicide. Anyway, Sir John is bullied by the other jurors into a guilty vote.
Because they were alone. Says they quarreled.
Admits it.
That's right.
But he can't leave well enough alone, so he teams up with the stage manager, Ted, and Ted's wife, the actress Ducey, to further investigate the murder. They're very bad at it, and even though the film tries to make you think they're discovering clues, at one point, Sir John goes into another room to trick an old lady by speaking in a high falsetto. Only someone with incredible acting skills could pull off that kind of investigational maneuver. So after basically just going off of vibes and a pseudo-confession revelation from Diana, they realized it was Handel Fane who committed the murder. That's right, the cross-dressing, gay-coded biracial man. That's why he had to trick that old lady into thinking there was a member of Monty Python in her living room, because Sir John assumed it was Handel Fane from the beginning. What kind of an investigation is this? They try to trick him into confessing, with more acting, of course. Sir John really only has one tool in his toolkit. He doesn't, but he realizes the jig is up and kills himself while performing as a trapeze artist. But not before he leaves a note explaining everything. Diana is released, and we realize that this all started because Sir John wanted to kiss her on the mouth. Really, Sir John? I feel like being on that jury is a little bit of a conflict of interest. You might not have been able to tell from that synopsis, but I loved this movie. First of all, everything you love about Hitchcock is there. It's not refined yet, but the opening scene where we discover the murder is tense and shocking. The finale culminates in a way that he'd perfect in Strangers on a Train, but it's still suspenseful and fun. Herbert Marshall is great as Sir John. I would like to see more films about the great actor Sir John solving mysteries. And this movie is funny. The bickering between Ted and Ducey, the interactions between them and Sir John navigating their class differences are great. There's an especially funny piece of business when they sit down to eat some soup or something. Ducey picks up a teaspoon, and not wanting to embarrass them, Sir John does as well. And then seeing that he's the only one with the bigger spoon, Ted finally picks up his. And so they're all eating soup with these tiny spoons. It's such a small moment and totally tangential to what's going on in the scene, but it had me cracking up, the specificity of it. And the scene at the very top of the film when the two officers are trying to interview members of the cast as the performance is going on is hilarious. I wish the film was more invested in the comedy because it was working so well. And of course, it's hard to talk about this film without at least mentioning Handel Fane, played by Esme Pierce. He is clearly a gay-coded character, even though the film tries really hard to say otherwise. He's also biracial, and he's also the murderer. I understand it's 1930, but they're laying it on real thick. This was a trope Hitchcock used a lot in his movies. Strangers on a Train, rope. I don't know enough to give any special insights, but the channel James Somerton has some great videos about LGBTQ+ representation, especially in early film. If you want to check those out, I'll leave their video, The Golden Age of Queer Coding, in the description. But if you're interested in hearing me talk more, click that right there. Why not?